those are issues that traditionally, as lawyers, we haven't been trained to manage or to run. So issues such as finance, admin issues, practical admin issues, strategy. Why does your law firm need a strategy? Client management, very important for all of us, but very few of us have actually been trained for it. And the topic of today, which is business development, at least the topic of this particular session, which is business development. Our speaker for today is the managing partner of the law firm of Aluko Aneobody, one of Nigeria's leading law firms, Mr. Reginald Udom, who I know very well and I've heard speak several times. He's been the managing partner of Aluko Aneobody since 2021, and before that, practiced in the firm's banking and finance team since 2007. Reginald will be talking to us today about business development. I've had the privilege of seeing his slides ahead, and I look forward to him sharing his knowledge about this topic with us. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Reginald Udom. Mr. Reginald Udom, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adeoye Adefulu, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining today very promptly. I must thank all of you at the MBA ICLE for asking me to speak today. I think it's an honor and a privilege, and I will try to, I have very limited time, I will try to rush through the slides. I've been given 35 minutes, and I'm going to try and share my slide now, so just give me a second to do it. Or will the administrator be sharing it on my behalf? Just checking.
You can go ahead and share your slides.
Okay. Sorry. Please confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. So I've been asked to speak on business development and networking, and I understand that the audience is mostly lawyers, even though I think that there might be some law firm administrators in the room as well. So ordinarily, I would have liked to make it very interactive, but because I have a very short time frame, I'm going to try and go through the slides, and then there will be Q&A, I understand, at the end. I try to give a bit of a background, talking about Nigerian law firms from maybe 20 years ago, even 15, 10 years ago. Historically, it used to be like one-man practices. Then you started having the smaller partnerships. Over time, in the last 5 years or so, you have a lot of very large partnerships in Nigeria, which is a positive. But the truth still remains that in most cases, some of these partnerships, even though they are large, still revolve around very strong personalities. And so, again, they don't teach you how to do, to market or to network in law school. Maybe they've changed the curriculum, but in my time, they never used to teach business development. I'll call it BD for short. And so, in fact, the rules governing our conduct, the RPC, seems to frown at marketing. It basically says that, it basically says that lawyers should not advertise or promote except it's fair and proper, which is strange in 2022 because this is the era of technology, this is the era of globalization. In fact, lawyers now work cross-border more than they work locally. And you wonder how people are going to know about your services and the work you do all over the world, sitting in Lagos here, if you're not allowed to showcase some of the things you do. So that also is one of the things that you're coming from, that's the background you're coming from. Again, like I said before, because most law firms revolve around personalities as opposed to processes, most law firms do not have established processes in relation to the way they do things. They just basically wing it. Most things are in relation to the mood of the employer at the time. So even things as crucial as promotions or salary increases would sometimes depend on the mood of the principal. So if you go to him at the time when he's happy to do it for you. There are no established processes in most firms in relation to career progression, conflict, timekeeping, etc. And so if lawyers have to take business development serious, then they have to you have to have processes and protocols in relation to how it's to be done. And even though you hear me talk about BD all the time, this is because networking is a subset of BD. So even though the topic is business development and networking, I would just assume that networking is part of the BD and take it all together. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, I just tried to put together some definitions of business development. There are 3 of them on the screen. The one that resonates most with me is the one with the light bulb, the one in the middle. So it's the ideas, the processes, the methods, the initiatives that you take to improve your business. So how you acquire clients and how you retain existing clients. So when I talk about BD during this discussion, it will be in this regard. So BD would normally include the following: acquiring new partners and clients. So I know that, again, based on our rules of practice in Nigeria, you're not supposed to enter into a partnership with somebody who's not a lawyer to practice law. That's not the kind of partners I refer to here. So sometimes when you're going after large transactions, cutting across different disciplines, you have to do it as a consortium. So there will be a legal advisor, a technical advisor, a financial advisor, etc. And so sometimes for you to project yourself and go after the bigger briefs, you have to do it with partners who are not lawyers. So that's the kind of partnership I'm referring to here, when you partner with people to collaborate for the larger goal. So BD would include acquiring new partners and clients, entering new markets, and this could be locally or internationally. I know at least 2 Nigerian law firms that have offices abroad, London and Ghana. I know that locally as well, some people who do a lot of oil and gas briefs, for instance, won't just stay in Lagos. They would also go to places like Port Harcourt or Calabar. Some people who liaise a lot with government won't also stay just in Lagos. They would also open offices in Abuja. So entering into new markets locally or internationally. Developing new products or services. So sometimes when I go for MBA conferences or for meetings outside Lagos, and I meet lawyers who practice in places in the provinces, and they ask me whether what kind of practice I do, they usually are very surprised to hear that I haven't been to court for at least 10 years. For some of these lawyers, they just believe that courtroom practice is it. They can't understand how you can be a lawyer, work in a law firm, and not go to court. So again, lawyers have to realize that there are new products and services and expand their practices to take advantage. It also includes cross-selling and upselling. In very simple terms, increasing your share of the cake. And I'm going to talk about this in more detail later. So for the small law firm or the sole practitioner who's trying to develop processes, remember I talked about doing these things methodically, having a process, having a policy, as opposed to the whim of the principal. You need to start by asking yourself that what are the goals that a law firm is there to satisfy? I have 3 of them set out here in very broad guidelines. Should I say 3 S or 3 S's? But basically service, satisfaction, and success. So first of all is that it's a privilege for people to ask you to come and help them solve problems. It's a privilege to be asked to provide a service. And so once you have that privilege, you must be outstanding in the service you provide to clients. So in my part of the country, they say that if you have good wares, if you sell something really good, you don't have to shout a lot, you don't have to advertise a lot. People would come and buy because it's really good. So if your service is really good, it will speak for itself. People will know that you provide good service and they will come to you. So that's the one about service. The other one is the one about professional satisfaction for staff. And this is not even about money. It's about loving what you do. So like Adeoye said at the beginning, I work in the banking and finance practice. Whenever people join our department, there's a book I ask them to read. It's called Taking Security by Richard Kalnan. It's very deep, but it's written in very simple English. So if you actually enjoy that subtopic and you read that book, it helps a lot. So every now and then I come across the very exceptional person who says that he found the book very boring. That raises a red flag for me that if Kalnan, which is supposed to be very to the point and very core to the topic that we practice is not interesting to you, maybe you won't have satisfaction in the job. So for anybody who's a service provider, you must have joy in providing the service. So that's the satisfaction part of it. And then thirdly is the success. So that's in terms of reward to the staff and reward to the firm. So you grow the business, you make money, everybody is happy. Because in as much as law is a calling, it's also a business. People are there not just to save the world, but also to make money. Then coming back to bring it all together, I think one of the things people think when they hear about business development is what they call the output market. So it's about competing for the large briefs. It's about getting the work in. And so they focus just on the client. They're just being very client-centric. How do we get work from this bank or this oil company, etc.? That is just one part of it, in my view. There's also the input market. So no matter how close you are to the CEO or to the chairman or to the legal advisor and they're giving you work, that won't last very long if you're not doing the work well. And so you need to have the talent in-house to do the work. And unlike a few years ago when it was the employer's market, today is the employee's market. Young lawyers have a choice. They can go to Canada, they can go into tech, they can become entrepreneurial. So they have a choice as to what they want to do. So it's a fierce competition out there for talent. And that is also part of business development. So I was interviewing a young lawyer the other day, and normally when I finish my own part, I ask them if they have a question for me. In my own time, people would ask questions relating to how much is the salary or how long are the hours. But what this guy asked me was that, so what are your goals for the next 5 years as a firm? So young lawyers actually know that they have a choice and they are really pressing it. So there's a fierce competition out there. So for you to have a good BD plan, it shouldn't just be about the output market, about how to acquire clients. It should also be about how to get talent in to do the work. And so I broke it up into two. There's the one about professional advancement, and then there's the one about client acquisition and retention. So first, I will talk about the professional advancement plan, which is the PAP for short. So this is the one about being very conscious, being very intentional about improving the abilities of the people you have in-house and about burnishing the reputation of your firm. So there are law firms out there that as soon as you get a letter from them, you don't even have to read it. As soon as you see the font, you know that the letter is from them. Some law firms, when you read the letter from them or processes from them, you don't even have to go to the last page to see who signed it because all of them write the same way. All of them are just the same. They actually have that same consistency across board. And this is very important because a firm is just as good as the weakest lawyer there. And so you can't have a firm where if lawyer A does the work, it's stellar, is exceptional. But when lawyer B does the work, it's not good at all. So you have to invest in PAP. And I just try to give a few examples of how to do this. The first one I put out there is the one about participating in professional events, conferences, and seminars. Doing the work is very good, but being known for doing the work is also great visibility. And so when you go for MBA, SBL, or other seminars or conferences, you see some law firms sponsor and their logos and their banners are all over the place. For the young lawyer out there, he sees these firms all the time. It creates an impression. Even the clients who come for those events, who know that lawyers from all over the country are coming, when they see your banners and your logos out there, it makes an impression to them. When you go to them to pitch for work, for instance, that name recognition is already there. Not just sponsor, but even speaking as well. So when you speak, you also have the opportunity to basically talk about your knowledge. First time I met Adeoye was at a conference where I was talking about what used to be the PIB, and that was like 20 years ago or so. And after that, I just realized that he was a great oil and gas lawyer from just one event. And so this is the way these things work. People, when they hear you talk internationally or locally, whenever issues come up in that field, they would remember and then they would call you, and that might be a way of getting work. Also organizing seminars, and not just legal seminars, it could also be in specialist areas. And so, I like the MBA conferences, I like the SBL conferences. But one thing about some of those conferences is that it's just lawyers in the room, which is a good thing because we're all learning from ourselves. But the thing about having only lawyers in the room is that nobody's giving out any work except they want to ask you to hold the brief for them in your jurisdiction. And so when you organize conferences in areas relating to tech, finance, etc., you get the opportunity to bring in people who are actually baking the cake, and you're part of it. So if you organize a conference on fintech, for instance, and you bring people from the CBN, SEC, etc., it's going to be very robust discussions. You're going to have an opportunity to actually mix with the people who are in the sector, in the field. And then when they want to give work out in that area, they will remember you. And talking about what I mentioned before about lawyers just focusing on just the very narrow area of courtroom practice, the world is changing. This is 2022. People are talking about NFTs, metaverse, fintech, etc. You have to expand your horizon and expand your practice. So you have to be a thought leader in some of these new areas, fintech payments, digital banking, etc. Participate, like I said, in innovation hubs, not just the lawyer conferences, but also go to all these places where these people who are doing these things are, and mix with them. Introduce yourself as a lawyer, talk about the legal issues, show yourself to be an expert in that regard. Then you provide services to some of the founders. Some of them are actually very young people who are looking for people to guide them and show them where to go. So it's also an area for lawyers to do BD in relation to. Then chambers of commerce, the trade groups, be an advisor, be seen, be visible in some of those things. And then for some of the older lawyers who think that maybe they're also far gone along their path, they can't really expand on their own, you can also partner with a young lawyer who's trying to make a name for himself or herself in that area and use that as a way of creating this extra stream of income. Next one is publicizing achievements. If you don't celebrate your own wins, who will? I just think that the only caveat here is that in doing this, you must ensure that you do it within the confines of the RPC, no unnecessary boasts, and don't disclose confidential information. And so most firms today would publish their headline deals on their social media pages, for instance, LinkedIn. There are some reputable legal journals like Chambers, Who is Who, Legal 500, IFLR, etc. There's no reason why you shouldn't try to get into this. The reviews are mostly peer reviews. Apart from the peer reviews, there are also the ones that they speak to clients, and clients give great feedback about if your work is good. And that can also be a way of you to get referrals. You can imagine how many times I've seen people call me or email me to tell me that they saw a referral somewhere and they have that similar line of work and they want me to do it. So it's very important for business development. And then collaborate with other law firms and network. Because like I said earlier on, it's the era of globalization. You can't just stand in one place. You can't just do nothing. And so I know about 2 Nigerian law firms who are members of a global alliance. There's several of them, but I think 2 are mostly frontline. One of them happened last year, I think. So their name now have their usual Nigerian name, hyphen, the global law firm. That is their way of breaking into the global market and becoming more competitive and increasing their recognition. There are networks where you stay independent as a law firm, but you're also part of a network. Basically collaborate, share ideas, and grow together. And so what are people doing in this regard? People are partnering with the ILFs, that's the international law firms, or joining networks. People are doing exchange programs or secondments. So there's the ILFA, there's the one that people actually agree with law firms where your staff would go and sit in a law firm in London, for instance, for 6 months. Believe me, when they come back different. And so these are ways of the PAP I talked about, increasing their technical expertise and making them more marketable and becoming more valuable to the firm. You can also collaborate with international law firms to do some of the cross-border work that is happening all over the place. So there are just several examples all over. You can also catch them young, so offer intensive programs and opportunities to ask them to come into the room even before they become lawyers. I know so many law firms, including mine, that they do all these holiday jobs where people come and do like an internship during the long holidays, and then they actually go away with a very good impression. And when they become lawyers, they want to come back and work with you. Some firms have scholarships where they give to the best students, and it's also a way of attracting and retaining some of the best talents out there. It's also a form of business development. Remember, I talked about the input market and the output market. So having finished with PAP, which is the input market, the way to attract clients, I will now do the output, which is the way about, the way to attract talents. So I'll do the one about attracting clients and retaining them. So I will start with networking. I will just read out what is here. So it's taking steps to create and develop productive relationship with others that can ultimately lead to acquisition of new clients. And so this is about the things that you do to get to know people so that they can give you work, so they can retain their work. And there's this saying that your network is your net worth. So what you have depends on who you know or who you flow with, which means that relationships are like money, it's currency, and you have to use your relationships to grow your business. So for a lawyer, you have to be very intentional about turning strangers to acquaintances. So when you go into a conference, don't just sit down and look at what they're, or listen to what they're saying. You go around during the tree breaks, you network, you meet people, you give them your cards, you introduce yourself, and basically turn them to acquaintances, and then hopefully from there to clients. Note that I said acquaintances to clients, not acquaintances to friends. There's this joke that you play golf with your friends, but you do business with your clients. The end goal here is to make money, not to play golf, even though golf is a form of networking. And so I think because most lawyers are very, you know how in school in those days, lawyers used to just say that we're not like all those carpenters and builders. Lawyers are a bit of a snob. You actually have to work at knowing how to network and mix freely with people of other professions so you can get work from them. And there are several ways of doing it. So for a firm that would have extroverts that these things come to naturally and introverts that they need some bit of work, you have to be intentional. So maybe commit to a minimum number of networking events that the firm would either sponsor or ask people to go for. And that would be a KPI. That would be doing appraisals. Lawyers will have to tick the box that they actually did this networking and this is how it came about. And like I said, it could include conferences or large corporate anniversaries, etc. And it could also include going out for drinks with people in the evening. The truth is that sometimes when you go to offices to pitch for work, it's so formal and the guy doesn't really know you and all. And it's so difficult to break through. I have an example of somebody I was chasing so much in Lagos, trying to get work from, and it never quite happened. And I saw that person at an oil and gas conference, and we agreed to meet up for drinks. And then we had a very good evening, no discussion about work. Came back to Lagos, and the person was calling me and asking me to come and do some work and telling his colleagues that, look, I'm a very great lawyer. I think what he didn't tell them was that he didn't form this view from the formal conference. He formed this view over informal drinks that had nothing to do with with law, sorry. So in a formal atmosphere can actually turn to yes in a relaxed atmosphere, which is why it's good to market. So for a law firm, I think everybody should market actually. There's nothing about appropriate level staff. Even the juniors could actually write articles or go for MBA event, basically go out there to promote the firm, promote themselves, put themselves out there. And like I said earlier on, anybody can master the art of networking. Deoye, how am I doing for time? Do I have like 10 minutes or so?
You're doing very well. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Thank you. So these are some of the tips. I mean, it's not very exhaustive. Some of the tips you can consider. So like I said before, be very proactive. Actively look for opportunities to network. Don't just wait for it to come to you. It wouldn't come to you. Find common ground when discussing with others. So like I said earlier on, lawyers are very boastful. So you'd see somebody who has no care about whether you're a lawyer or not at a conference, not a legal conference, by the way, and you go in and tell him you're a big lawyer, you do this and you do that. So I think a better way would be to find out what the person does, listen to what they do, find out their interests. Fortunately, most Nigerians like football, for instance. So if they like football, discuss football. Some people like wine. In fact, I know people who actually go out of their way to study other areas just as a way of building business. I'm currently studying art. I'm trying to learn so much about art and all. So when I go to conferences, I discuss art with, a lot of people actually like art. And so they're actually very, they're very interested when they find a lawyer who knows things outside their strict, narrow legal field. Study economic trends. Sometimes when you go for international conferences and you say you're from Nigeria, people want to know what areas are thriving, what you think about the economy, where the economy is going, the big companies in the NSE. If you see a private equity investor, for instance, they like to hear this information. And if you're the one that brought the opportunity his way, if he wants to do the deal, he will remember you as the lawyer who brought it his way. And if it's a Nigerian-based event, for instance, and you have foreign delegates, please let them know where to visit. So tell them what restaurants are good to go and eat, what hotels are the best, what events to go to in Lagos and all. They actually appreciate all those things. Follow up, don't just give cards at the event and then move on. Follow up with an email, send them materials in their area if you know. And even at the event itself, don't just sit down, like I said, ask questions, make comments. That also gives you some visibility and that helps make an impression. Yes, social media. A lot of firms have LinkedIn pages. If you're a lawyer in the room and your firm doesn't have a LinkedIn page, I think it's a minus. I think you should have a LinkedIn page. It's a very serious platform. It's not like Twitter or Facebook or the rest of them. It's mostly business oriented. Become very active on LinkedIn. Talk about some of the things you're doing as a firm. Post your thought leadership articles on LinkedIn. And I think that there are rewards to this. And LinkedIn is mostly for the client-centric part of it. Remember, I told you that this is in two ways. It's not just about acquiring clients. It's also about acquiring talent. So the millennials and the Gen Z would not come to your firm if they thought it was too toxic or their mental health would suffer. They would come when they think it's cool. So have an Instagram page where you post pictures of your parties, of your office events. Let them know that it's not just about the work, that there's just some cool elements as well in relation to the firm. And that's a way of attracting talent with social media. I talked about upselling initially. So some clients would come to you and say that actually what they want you to do is to review a contract. You can actually upsell by letting them know that, look, there's no way to review exhaustively without doing a due diligence on the counterparty. And by doing that, you increase your size of the cake. And so that's for you doing the one work. There's also the one about in some firms, you would have a client, let's say a bank client, that works only with the litigators, doesn't do any work at all with the corporate, doesn't make sense. And so if as a litigator in the firm, in a full service law firm, you're doing work with a particular client, it should be a KPI that you should also make sure that your corporate colleagues get a share of the cake and vice versa. So that's the cross-selling. So you do litigation for them, but you also let them know that, look, we also do trademark and we also do incorporation. And that way you cross-fertilize and make sure that your colleagues get other shares of the legal budget of that client. Referrals, like I said before, you have to do outstanding work. And if you do outstanding work, even the most difficult of clients would refer you to their friends and their family, etc. You can imagine the number of times a client has said that, look, you guys are the most expensive, but I want to go with you because I've seen the way you work and I want to have stellar work. I don't want to pinch pennies and do this thing wrongly. And I think it's a form of a compliment to the law firm that, look, even though they think you're pricey, they're willing to pay the price for you to do good work. So you have to do the best work ever so they can get referrals. And clients have ticked some of these things as what is very important to them. So most firms are very transactional. As soon as you finish that case and they pay you, you wave by and that's the end of it. During COVID, most firms were checking up on their clients, just basically finding out how they were doing. And some of them said they appreciated that. Some people say they like it that when you finish the work, you call them up and say, look, how did I do? What could we have done better? Could you give us tips on what we can do better? Give us feedback. And so you could do that as a law firm as well. It's a form of business development. You can offer discounts. I mean, everybody likes a free book. You can offer discounts to existing clients. You can send them regulatory updates, basically to let them know what is in the sector. And it's enlightening self-interest because if they find something that they like and they want to carry on, it's you they would come to. Organize free trainings for your in-house clients. If you do that, you get very close to the people, you know what they're planning, and then you actually have an opportunity to get a bigger share of the cake from them. So in general, just be very client-centric in your thinking. In terms of pitches, proposals, and quotes, like I said earlier on again, lawyers have their language. But remember the ABC of the legal profession: accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Most people don't pay attention to the C of the ABC. You need to be very clear in your pitches and your proposals. If possible, speak the language of the client so that they understand what you're doing. Go straight to the point. And all these things help you in your business development. Finally, you have to write and write and write. You have to write in journals. Like I said earlier, it's not enough to do the work. It's not enough to know about the work. People have to know that you know it as well. So basically sell yourself out there. Remember that it's those that are seen that are patronized. Build capacity in new areas. I talked about this earlier. So fintech, GROC, white collar crimes. Don't just limit it to just litigation or just to incorporation or corporate. Be very wide and diverse. engage in CSR. So this is not an obvious one, but it's very important. Increasingly, when clients want you to, international clients especially, want you to do work for them, they ask you for your CSR policy. Some of them are very environmental friendly and all. They want to know whether you have any policies in that regard. And even things like asking people to come and do internship with you or give scholarships. These are all ways of creating awareness, getting to know people, making the world a better place, and still getting paid in that regard. So please engage in CSR, have a CSR policy for your firm. Just to bring it all together, so every firm is looking not just to exist, but to thrive in their given areas of practice. Be very intentional about business development, because that could transform a small or an average firm into a top-tier law firm. Actively pursue business development as a means to a productive and fruitful end. Lawyers are not very good at it because they don't teach it in law school, and not everybody is wired to do it. So you actually need help. Apart from processes, you might want to have a unit that does BD for you as a law firm. So most firms actually have a BD unit. They have professionals come and do this for them. There is a budget for BD. So it's not just about talking the talk. You also have to walk the walk. And so most firms would say that as a senior associate, as a partner, you must take clients for drinks 5 times in a quarter, for instance. You must do ABC in relation to business development. There has to be a budget for it. And there has to be a KPI. So when you are praising yourselves as partners or senior associate, etc., you must say that, what have you done in relation to business development? It's not enough that you know the law or that you service existing clients. What have you done to upsell, to cross-sell, to increase the pots for everybody in the firm? So most people would ask you that, so what's that unique characteristic that you need to be great at business development or to be great at networking? In my view, I don't think there's any one of them. If you look at the top law firms in Nigeria, and I picked out just 4, there are so many other great law firms, not just these 4. Their co-founders have done very well in terms of their networking skills, in terms of their business development skills, but that's where it stops. If you compare them one to the other, they're all like chalk and cheese. They're not all the same. One is very academic, even a pastor. The other one loves to basically have a good life. The other one likes business. I think he's more of a businessman than a lawyer, etc. But they've all done very great. And what this tells you is that whether you're an introvert, whether you're an extrovert, you could be great at business development. You just have to be intentional about it and go about it. And thank you very much. That's it for me. Over to you, Adeoye.
Well, thank you so much, Reginald. This was an excellent presentation. I know that you had to kind of rush through it, but we've chosen to finish the presentation early because we thought that there would be lots of questions that the audience would like to ask you. And I will start sort of that question before everybody else in the audience. And you mentioned a number of things that are very interesting to me in that presentation, but I'd like to hone in on maybe 2 areas in a particular slide. The first was, you talked about international, sort of the ranking directories. And for someone who has never gotten their name into those directories, how do they go about doing that? So that's the first question. You've never been near a directory. Nobody has actually called you to put in your name. How do you get to do that? So that's my first question. Then you also talked about international secondments, etc. There are a number of law firms here who don't have those relationships to do international secondments, but may be even interested in doing sort of local secondments. So a secondment from a firm, perhaps in Asaba, to another law firm in Lagos, or a firm in Katsina to a firm in Abuja. Is there any way that, do you know if there's any organized way of doing such, of making such an arrangement? So those would be my 2 questions. Thank you, Reginald. And then I'll also hand over to, after that, there's a Q&A box here. Please put in any questions that you may have, and entire Equiken will be managing the Q&A session. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So let me start with the ones you've asked. And then maybe Inta can collate the questions that come in. Maybe it's going to be good for people to put in their questions in the chat room or in the Q&A box, and then people can answer that. And incidentally, I was looking at the Q&A box, and somebody had asked about how you get to know about these events and these seminars that would give you that visibility, because Eventbrite, she says, is not very useful. And so again, like I said, you have to be very intentional. Some of these things happen every year. So if you're an IP lawyer, for instance, you know, they have Inter every year. If you're an oil and gas conference, you know about the local NOW and the one in Cape Town and the whatever, I mean, depending on whatever your interest is. So there are some that are in industry sector related that happen every year. You have to put them all together the month they happen and plan towards it. And then for the other ones that are very irregular, of course, they use the same channels that every other person uses to promote, to give publicity. So if you read the papers and you follow social media, there's no way you wouldn't know about some of these things as they happen and plan towards them, which is why it's good to have a unit dedicated to BD if you're a big law firm. And if you're a small law firm, you can't have an extra unit, then let it be somebody's responsibility to look out for these opportunities for you. And then Delia had asked about the directories. So there are so many of them out there today. In fact, it's so difficult to keep track. The first naturally is to know what those directories are, because there's so many, and some of them actually email you and say that you've won so-and-so Lawyer of the Year award, even when you never entered, put in an entry. So you have to know the ones that are useful and the ones that are just out there like junk trying to make money off you. When you compile a list, they all have criteria as to what you have to do to be eligible. So that would help you again plan yourself, maybe give yourself a target that next year I'm going to become ranked. These are the criteria. I have to have a big transaction. I have to have this part of education, etc. So you start working towards those criteria. And then some of them actually offer you, they call it a training service for a fee, where if you pay them a little, and it's not so much, if you pay them a little fee, they would help you look at your proposals, tell you how to write. They will tell you what to look out for. And some of it actually is feedback. They have to speak to clients. They have to speak to your colleagues who are lawyers. So again, it goes back to you providing a very outstanding service, because if you don't provide good service, you won't have clients that will give you great referrals. It also goes about the way you relate with clients, with your colleagues. If you are very obnoxious, for instance, when they call your colleagues and say, we got so-and-so referral recommendation for X person in X firm, they won't say great things about you. So it all comes together. But this is, in a nutshell, is how it works for the directories. So find out what the directories are, find out the ones that are useful, find out the criteria, get that cheap training on how to write and what to put in, and then give yourself a target and work towards it. In terms of the secondments, yes, like you mentioned, there's the international one and the local one, and they're actually open to everybody. There's what they call ILFA, which is open to lawyers. I think it's up to 5 years in Nigeria. It's across Africa, so lawyers are up to 5 years in firms across Africa can apply, and they're basically very transparent. When you apply and your CV merits it, they'll call you for an interview and then take it from there, and they pick up some of your costs. So ILFA is a good one if you're looking for international exposure. If you work in a big firm, you don't even have to wait for ILFA. Most of the big firms have arrangements with some of these foreign firms that you can go and sit down in their offices for a couple of months. And they also send people to your own offices to come and sit as well. So it's mutual. For the local one, again, you have to improvise. So some of the big firms actually offer secondment opportunities because of space. And in the last 2 years, because of COVID, it's become very competitive. But I do know that some firms offer it. We do it as well for, we do what they call capacity training for some of the government ministries, where we ask their lawyers to come and sit with us, and we give them opportunities to do secondment with us. We also do it for some clients as well. But you have to ask. I mean, the worst they can say is no, but you have to ask and just cast your net wide. You might get the opportunity in one of the big firms. Thanks. Over to you, Inta.
Okay, hi, Reginald. All right, so we have just barely 10 minutes. So I'm just going to go through the questions quickly. For the slides, we will have to send that out to you later. So I'm not going to take any questions on that. So the first one is, what are good ways an introverted lawyer can go about networking?
Okay. So I have to let you know that I'm actually very introverted, but yes, it has not stopped me from networking. So you have to be intentional about it. Like I said, firms should actually have a plan. It can't just be a whim or just wake up one day and say, okay, we're going to do it today or tomorrow. You have to have a plan. So have a networking plan or a BD plan in general. Then say what lawyers must do, set targets for everybody, and you'll be very surprised at how these things work. And like I said, if you have issues with starting conversations or what to talk about, it's actually like a learning curve. So read up on things, find out what people like to talk about. Is it football? Start watching football. Is it art? Learn about art. Is it wine? So basically find out meeting or those common areas between you and potential clients, because you'd have to make conversation. And it doesn't even have to be very serious intellectual conversation. Sometimes when expatriates come to Nigeria, they want to talk about how the whole place is so rowdy and crazy. How do people get from one place to the other? These are things you can talk about easily and create that atmosphere to get everybody to relax and get them to know who you are. And then you can sell yourself.
Okay, so the next question is, how do you transit from in-house counsel to running or practicing in a private law firm?
If you're qualified to practice law in Nigeria, you can run a law firm or do in-house counsel. I think it's probably a bit difficult if you have been in-house for a while, because if you're in-house, your practice is probably tailored to the office you work in. So if you work in another company, for instance, you probably have been doing just oil and gas type things. In fact, in some big organizations, they give you a very narrow role such that when you now want to come back into practice, it becomes difficult. But again, because law firms are big and because there's specialization across board, in Aluka Everybody, I do only banking and finance. In fact, I do more of the finance part than the banking part. And so there's actually that room for you to specialize and sell yourself and come back into a law firm with different partners and just focus on your area of your skill set. So it's doable.
Okay, so another one is asking, from a best practice perspective, what percentage of firms' budget should be allocated to CSR?
So I don't think there's a budget per se that I know about. It's actually about what you want to do. What I thought you'd ask about, and which is what most firms do, is that most firms want to be, I don't want to say specific, but you don't want everybody to do whatever they want to do. So there was a time when, because we actually have CSR as a KPI in ANO, and there was a time when people would go to do pro bono, people would go to read books to school children, people would go to plant trees, people would go to do some other things. It was all over the place. And so we thought, look, let's actually carve out those areas we want to focus on as a firm. And so we had niche areas for CSR. So that's the first one. In terms of how much you can spend, is a function of budget. Again, most of the big structured firms actually have budgets at the beginning of the year, such that you can say that this is the budget. This is how much it will cost you to pay salaries and run OPEX. This is how much it will cost you to make investments. And then you know how much is out there. But I think you have to work, as opposed to set a fixed amount, you have to work to the amount based on your budget and your revenues.
Okay, so I don't know if this question is related to what we talked about today, but what are the important and core policies a firm must have?
It's in the presentation actually. So it's there in slide 2 or 3. So that's an easy one. So they will see it in the slides. So you have to have policies on conflicts, onboarding, career progression, etc. It's there in the slides, so they'll get that.
Okay, so other than the questions that we have, because we said all questions should be posted in the chat, in the Q&A section, that would allow us to be able to read out those questions. You know, those are all the questions that we have on the chat, on the Q&A section. Okay, sorry, just one just came in.
So there are also some questions in the chat box, unfortunately.
Yeah, which is why we said, you know, because there's so many chats.
I know, but there are a number of important questions there.
Okay, yeah, did you find any? If you found any important questions.
There's one, which is, how can a lawyer deal with imposter syndrome? You're very competent, but do not have the craved additional certifications or big name firm. How do you network and break into the major client markets? It's a double-barreled question. I don't know if you got that, Reginald.
I didn't get the part about imposter syndrome. What are they trying to talk about? Please break it down to me like a 5-year-old doctor.
I'm reading the question, but essentially they say they do believe that they are competent, but they don't have those additional certifications. They're not in a big name firm.
I think.
Yeah. But they,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's easy. So it's so easy to think that it's the big firms that have to take all the work. So when I started off practice, I don't want to call names. There were firms that everybody knew about, and we all wondered how we're going to be able to do some of the big work because they were doing all the work. But nothing lasts forever. You have to start with what you're very good at and progresses from there. I don't want to go spiritual, but there's nothing about CS that a man who's diligent and he'll die before kings and all. It cuts across everything. So if you're very diligent in what you do and you do it well to the small clients, that small client will give the referral that will bring the big one. Because at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, nobody wants to, apologies to you, just a PhD or a son or whatever. They just want a person to solve the problem for them. And if they think that you're the one who will solve that problem, it doesn't matter whether you're in a big firm or a small firm, they will come to you if they think you can solve the problem.
Okay, so a question here says, would writing about your law firm or services on your WhatsApp status or other social media handles amount to advertising? Tricky.
I think you just have to follow what the RPC says and basically give your own interpretation and follow the decisions. So RPC says that it has to be fair and proper and in accordance with the RPC. I don't consider myself qualified to say which one is in compliance or not, but just basically follow the RPC. And as a firm that is very active on social media, this is what we do all the time. Whenever we want to post, we look at the RPC provisions and we don't post when we think we're going to be in breach. I think that the RPC is due for review, and I'm happy that the Secretary of the NBA Lagos branch is here. I think the NBA should review the RPC. People are talking about metaverse, for instance. How do you say that somebody who's in Lagos and also wanting to go into the metaverse shouldn't talk about themselves online when that's all we have in today's world?
Okay, so we just have another 5 minutes. So if a potential client isn't forthcoming, how should a lawyer engage with same?
Forthcoming how?
So you've been, marketing.
You don't have clients.
You're marketing the clients is not forthcoming. How do you engage with someone who you've been marketing for a very long time and the person is not forthcoming? That's what I understand the question to mean.
Oh, okay. So I think it's just like most relationships. I mean, you want to be friends with some people as well, and the people don't want to be your friend. You just have to know when to stop. You can't just keep pushing yourself. So if you've done the right things, which is basically make yourself known to this client, maybe at a seminar, at a conference, or even went to the office to do a pitch, and then you do the regular follow-up, not so much as to disturb them too much. And then you do the normal nudge. So maybe the client is the bank, for instance. You see a CBN circular, you send it to them. You basically do all the right things. It might be that the client's brother is also a lawyer and they rather give the work to their brother. So you just have to keep trying, but there's no way to force them to give you the work because you've marketed properly.
Okay, so the toxicity of legal practice in Nigeria is associated with who you know. Can a legal practitioner get involved in exploring business opportunities without being a busybody?
That question doesn't seem to be together. So I thought they're talking about getting into a law firm or getting the work. Which one is the who you know for now?
I think it's getting the work.
Oh, getting into the work. No, so I mean, just to use Nigerian parlance, right? There's the paddy one, of course. There's the one about your best friend being the CEO of a company and you being a lawyer. You're more likely to get the work than the person who is probably more competent than you. But like I said earlier, and it's going to be in the slides when you get the slides, there's just so much that no man can take you to. There will be that time when that work is very crucial and the person wants solutions. Imagine that the person is in EFCC cell, for instance, and they need that lawyer to get them out. Would they come to you who can't even, who doesn't know what to do and all that? Would they go to the guy who can get them out? Or they're trying to list an Eurobond, for instance, on the LSE, and Clifford Chance is the lawyer from London. Would they come to you who knows how to list Eurobonds, or would they go to the lawyer down the road who doesn't even know what Eurobonds are? So anybody can take you so far, but that competence would always trump at the end of the day.
Okay, so how do you scale as a lawyer who finds himself in a location that is not commercial centric, as a young lawyer who wants to build and grow in other thriving aspects of the practice?
So it depends on what you're doing there. So if you're there for NYSC, for instance, then you just have to just do the best you can. Look for the firms that are active in that area and do the best you can. But the truth is that everything is about location. So if you want to do commercial practice, for instance, you can't go to my village to do commercial law. I mean, people in my village are basically, they're looking for litigation services. I don't think anybody goes to lawyer for agreement even. They'll download it and use the template. So you have to go to the right location to get what you want. And if you can't get there because you don't know anybody there, you don't have any uncles and all, maybe you can start with this secondment you talked about, go there for 2 months, and hopefully within the 2 months you get a job and they might give you a loan to get a place to stay, etc.
Okay, so the challenge I have is that most questions really don't apply to what we're talking about today. But I'll just ask, please, can we talk about charges to give to a client? Seems this is a big bone of contention among lawyers and clients. In short, overcharging and undercharging. I don't know if it doesn't relate to what we were talking about during this presentation. But Reginald,
no, it doesn't. But it's a week-long program on law office development. So I'm sure there's going to be a session that will deal with pricing of legal services that will deal with that later in the week.
Okay, I think that is all the questions. Okay, so how ethical is it for a lawyer to visit a big client in his office or house for the purposes of being briefed? I think that's.
I thought we passed through that in law school. If the bank CEO wants to have a meeting in their boardroom, please go and meet the bank CEO in their boardroom. So sometimes, as a young lawyer starting off, it might even be that you don't have a proper office too. So you have all the intellect and you do so well online. So yes, they talked about the fact that you shouldn't go to their homes and all, but there's no issue about going to clients' offices. All professionals do that.
Okay, I think you've answered the question already about the fact that it is time for us to jettison, the RPC, and you have called
not jettison, amend, not jettison.
That was the question. So you called out, MBO officials that it's time to amend the RPC. I think we are done with all the questions. Dear, would you mind doing the closing remarks so we can introduce the next speaker?
Thank you.
Why are you in a hurry for Reginald to go?
Oh, sorry.
Why are people in a hurry for Reginald to go? Can't seem to have enough of him. Just got it myself.
Exactly.
Please throw a question at Reginald, please.
Reginald, why did you go? Why is your camera off?
So let me first say thank you to Reginald. This was an excellent presentation, and very rarely would I say that the Q&A was even better, because you were given so many questions that in a wide, dealing with a wide variety of topics, and you answered those expertly. We are looking forward to, obviously, this presentation will be shared with everybody. And I hope the chairman of ICLE is here as well. I hope that the video of the discussion will also be shared, because I think it will be very, very useful to everybody that has attended the presentation. Reginald, we look forward to hearing more from you about how, as lawyers in small, medium, and larger firms, we can continue to develop our practice and provide better service for our clients. One of the things that I am taking home from this presentation is your point that service, it is a privilege to serve, and we should always remind ourselves that it is a privilege to serve. So thank you so much, Reginald. It was a very enjoyable presentation. Thank you. So I'm going to hand over now, I believe, to the chairman of ICLE, who I think will talk a little bit about this Managing Your Law Practice series, and also introduce the next speaker in the series. So, Tobena Erujikwe, I'm handing over to you. Chairman ICLE, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Joye. I have my camera on in a bit. I've been traveling, so just got back in. I heard quite a bit of Reginald's presentation, and I must say, extremely impressive what I heard. And Reg, thanks for being part of this series. It's all part of giving back. It's what we preach about, but it's more, it's better when we actually do what we say than just talk about it. So thanks a lot for indulging us today. And we'll definitely come back at a better, more auspicious time to ask you for more. So thank you everyone for participating. The numbers are quite high. I see about 600 people logged in, so that's good. I hope you're finding it beneficial. Now, it's my pleasure this afternoon to introduce a very good friend of mine who's very busy but has agreed to provide us with this training this afternoon. Raymond Mwekwere is the General Counsel, First Bank of Nigeria Limited and its subsidiaries, a director of the First Dependents Nigeria Limited and First Nominees Nigeria Limited. He's a seasoned corporate legal practitioner with a stint in private practice before joining Nigerian International Bank Limited, now Citibank Nigeria Limited, in 1993. Raymond has held other company secretarial and legal advisory roles in the Nigerian financial service sector. Prior to joining the First Bank in June 2011, he was General Counsel, Corporate Secretary, and Head Corporate Services of Kakawa Discount House Group, now FBN Quest Merchant Bank Limited, from 2004 to May 2011. Over the course of his career, Raymond has had modest accomplishments in corporate finance, market development, and unique local and cross-border transactions. A recipient of several academic and workplace awards, Raymond was called to the Nigerian Bar in 1991 and holds a master's degree in law. He's an alumnus of the Lagos Business School and has attended executive programs of top-rated global institutions, including Harvard. Happily married and blessed with children, Raymond is a youth empowerment and leadership enthusiast. And I mean, I can speak so very well to the very last paragraph because Ray is someone that I find that I learn a lot from. He's a mentor of mine and a great, great, great human being. So it is my pleasure, my honor this afternoon to welcome Ray. Ray will be speaking on client relationship management. And he's who better to deal with this topic than Ray. Ray, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And can I be seen?
Yes. You
okay.
Look very good.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you, Adobe, and thank you for having me this afternoon. I'd like to commend you and your team for this series and the earlier ones I've also followed. Like Reginald said, it's an honor for you to pick us from the many people that would desire to have this opportunity. I'm glad that you had to have Reginald before me because he runs a law firm that's very successful. I've not run one before, but I'll be speaking from a consumer's perspective. That's why I put a slant to my paper where I said it is the client's angle to this conversation. Now, there's no doubt that law is a business. And I think the numbers, we'll be showing the slides, or how do you go?
So just click on the share screen button on your and then you can share your slides.
Antia, does Wally have his slides? Do you know?
No. But do you have your slides? Yes,
okay,
he has.
Okay, I think it's right.
Is it coming on?
We're just waiting for it to come.
I think it's loading.
Yes, it is.
Okay, why it loads? just to say that, as Reginald mentioned, historically people had their practices, one-man shows and all that, but we're seeing very huge practices emerging from Nigeria and a good number of law firms that can compete at any stage globally coming up. All that we are waiting to see are firms that have partners in hundreds and in thousands with footprints across the globe. And whether it's now or after our own generation, we're trusting that that will happen, because I think Nigerian lawyers have shown very strong presence and their capacity in what they do. Is it on now?
No, we still can't see. Can you email it back to me? I sent you an email earlier, so I can just share from here. Okay, so this is your screen. If this is your screen.
Should I stop sharing?
Yes, stop sharing and just do a reply my email. I sent you an email earlier, and I'll just share from here.
I can't see your email.
Okay, I thought I sent you an email earlier.
I can't see your email.
Okay, did you? All right, I'll
Okay,
send you.
Okay. The program, yes, I can see now.
Yes.
So want me to attach my?
Yes, please just
attach
attach it then. Yes, and I'll share from here.
Don't understand. You have it now?
Not yet. It hasn't come to me yet, so I'm just waiting. But if you've sent it, you can just go ahead while we wait for your slides. If it's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the contents, I will speak to introduction and legal practice of business, who the clients are, and the subject itself, client relationship management, then give a few useful tips, and then just say a word or two about the place of technology in the conversation. So like I said earlier, legal practice is big business. If you Google and take a few sites, you will see very whopping numbers around what this side of business brings to the table. Depending on whose data you're using, as at 2018, there are reports that legal services moved about $849 billion. And in the US, for example, it is hoped that in the next maybe 1 year or two, movements will be the order of about $144 billion, growth rate by next 2023. So it's not a business that anybody can ignore. Like Reginald mentioned, it's not charity. It is
Sorry,
a
can
big
you
business.
see my slide?
Yes.
Can you see the screen? You can see the slide now.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, so you can go on.
So I'm on the third slide, I think. Right. So next 4. Right. So I was sharing these numbers, and I think the message on this slide is that a firm should ensure that it puts necessary structures in place to run this business in a manner that the stakeholders around the business feel satisfied, so they continue to bring business, and the firms themselves continue to reinvest in the business of legal practice so that they can afford the ever-growing need for innovation, so they can also give value-added services to their clients. Next slide, please. Right. Our clients from law firms' perspective will be people in different industries. They could be corporate, they could be individuals, and every segment requires legal services, name wherever it is, your neighbor, your schoolmates, and the total market require you to support them with your skill sets. And that's who the client is. Next. Right, so the three words here are client, who we've just described, relationship, which is the manner you deliberately set out to keep close and warm to somebody or to an establishment, and not just a one-time arrangement. Some firms, if you encounter them, once they do a deal, they take off. You never see them again until they're looking for the next. But I think the business development initiatives that originally shared speak to this point, that it's important that you're in the face of your clients, not to obsess them on and not to disrupt their daily activities, but be reasonably available in their minds in a way that whenever they are thinking of a service that you render, your name pops up first. Then management is the strength and skill of keeping it running. And whatever is not managed doesn't get done well. So it has to be active involvement in such a manner that you don't lose what you've gotten. You also get more of the wallet of what you've gotten before. And I want to mention something about the client portion, which is that your client is the man you're working for today. Even in transactions, the guy on the other side could end up being your client. The way you deliver on your current client's transaction, even litigation, when cases are very hot and very fierce, each side is also watching the other side. And you find sometimes that lawyers who are on the other side of the table, the transaction may end up being wooed by the other guys in future transactions. And I would like to share an example here. TLC, which is Tovena's firm, I met them in a transaction where they were working for some other person. And because of the way they carry themselves, after the deal, I reached out to them to do other things for me along those lines. So that works also. As you're working for your clients, also know that there's a potential that how you carry that job may also influence even your adversaries in one deal to become your friends and your clients in the next. So here is a table of about 12 tips I'd like to share about how to add value. And I start by saying, know thyself. Know thyself is that you know what you're capable of doing, you know your competencies, you know your knowledge level, you know your niche, and you know your character, that is of the firm. You can't be same thing for all men. And you must know the kind of things you are willing to do. If you get a typical letter of a profile from a law firm in Nigeria asking you to give them jobs or to put them on your list, every law firm, most law firms would list everything under the sun, even when the promoter is a 2-year post call. They put in there that they have all the skills in the world. But when we talk about serious business here, we're talking about a firm knowing areas of competence and where its strengths lie. And Regina mentioned that when you're investing, if you want to go into new industry, new areas, you have to invest in them, learn them before you hold out that can do them. Not to obsess a client like getting into a deal with a firm and the firm is struggling. And if you're an in-house counsel, like you've appointed a firm, you're struggling and trying to help so that your leadership does not feel that you got him the wrong person. So all of you are sweating for no reason. But if you hold out to what you know, what you have competencies for, it's easier. Next is know your client. Clients differ. It's not exactly what a first bank would take that maybe a Julius Berger would take. The temperaments are different, the cultures are different, the driving forces are different. So as you work and get closer to your clients, learn them And in learning them is where you know how best to deepen the wallet you're getting from them, your interactions with them. And I want to connect that with another point here, which is about being strategic in your going to your clients. You have to be very deliberate. Some clients may be very good names on your books, but they may not be very good paying clients. So you go to them for their name and for the potential they are going to give to you. And for those who will pay, you get the money from them. So you don't get the same figures from everybody. But some relationships are big mileage creators, and you must be clear why you're walking into a relationship, whether it is for core more money making, or that is one that can also enhance your space in the market. I'd like to also mention the point about being professional. That's the third block there. You have to demonstrate professionalism, and you also have to respect your clients. A few times, even we that are also lawyers in-house lawyers meet counsel lawyers, right, who from their conduct seem to suggest that they believe that in-house counsel are not lawyers, that they've left school and they don't know what law is. And when you come with that attitude, you find that in-house counsel and your clients have friction with you. But if you show respect to one another, you are likely to earn more respect also in return. So when you have mutual respect between a law firm and its clients, things work better. When your bill is presented, there's a better platform in negotiating it than where you're perceived as one that talks down on clients or that feels that you're a gift to your client. It's good that you have skills, but like Reginald mentioned, skills are all over the place. And a choice of you in a transaction is one that you must sever and hold on well and show respect to the person who made that possible for you. The next point is about flexibility. And here is about your clients are not in business to develop the law. They're also not going to grade your legal piece to score you a 90 or an 80 in the quality of what you've written. They are looking for solution. So why not trading the fundamentals? It's important that you present a flexible and approachable disposition so that the way people feel that lawyers are very stiff, you don't suffer that label to your disadvantage. So you listen and try the way that your skills make your client get value. That's why the client comes to you for solution. It's in flexibility that you open your mind to see other possible options than just saying a yes or a no. The fifth point I'd like to raise are the issues around communication, which has to be very effective. Starting from your speed of communication. For example, you take a matter, you are in court. The moment you leave the court, please send your feedback to your clients. And let those feedback be reliable. Not the one you send in, somebody relies on it to take a step, and you call 3 hours later to say, oh, by the way, I'm sorry, what I told you wasn't the fact. The judge said ABC, not XY, not XYZ. And that really puts your client in trouble sometimes, especially when you're working with in-house counsel, who is like a go-between between the law firm and the client who has engaged you. The in-house counsel takes you as an extension of his office. He has subletted part of his mandate to you and relies on you 100% for delivery. And his KPI carries success from what you're doing. And failure in what you do also reports on his performance. So once you get a letter from an in-house counsel, he's telling you, my colleague, this is a piece of my desk I'm handing over to you. Return it to me with value. If you fail, the in-house counsel has failed. So you communicate speedily, effectively, using all channels. You cannot stay away from the tech platforms, social media platforms, whatever is feeding, let it be around you so that you're able to make very clear, prompt, and reliable feedback and communication. 6 points is about following through logically. Some people start well, they don't end well. The strength of a good law firm and a good practice is that they pick up a transaction and they see to a logical end. Even when it drags on or where it is stalled, they're able to remember and keep reminding you that this is where this thing stands. Is there any update on it? Is there a suit? They follow it all through the judgment, and if there's need to put on appeal, they do that. Not the ones that halfway they lose track and all of you are out. It is very, very embarrassing not to conclude deals or to leave cases hanging in a manner that the other side can really attack you without you knowing it. So monitoring and following through is a very strong part of the strength of the law practice. A 7th point would be retaining the earnings from the practice in the practice, plowing back capital in the practice and reinvesting in the practice. Not that the firm produces the entire monies and the entire monies are taken out for personal investments and the firm suffers. There's no capacity building in the firm. Reginald have mentioned a gamut of courses, trainings, seminars, workshops. Nothing happens from that end. Your people, the firm, the lawyers are insular. They are not exposed. The big stage scares them, and money comes in, money goes out. A firm is a business, and a business thrives on capital, intellectual, and finance. So, apart from the intellectual capacity they have, also put back some of these monies in the practice. And part of the money put back also enhances the intellectual capacity. 8th point, be competitive. It is a business and people have to compete. Do not have any entitlement mentality. Oh, my name is this. They owe me a job. They have to come my way. In your class, they were more than you. There are 5, 6, 10, 15, 30, 100 in that class. You can't be sure that only you learned those principles. In practice, what you're hearing in court, others are hearing. So there's nothing you can claim. Not the best knows than yourself. So we have a transaction or a call to service. See it like Reginald advised as a call to service and show your best in it. Do not sit back and hope that everything will come your way. No, you go out and win the mandates and you go out and deliver on those mandates. In being competitive, I also want to advise that you also be collaborative, even amongst firms. If you are doing banking, for example, in banking, if you're going to trade instruments, you can't trade with yourself. If no other bank knows how to trade, you cannot trade. I cannot make income from trading. So it's in your interest to train other bankers to learn how to trade. The same way lawyers. If nobody knows how to transact on deals in this market, you can't transact alone. There was somebody on the other side. So collaborate with others, and even when there's need to have joint mandate, so be it. Let us know that in competition, there's still space for collaboration. My 9th point will be about being strategic, and I hinted that when I spoke to the issue around knowing your client. There must be a reason why you're pursuing a certain client. You have to be deliberate. It's also about, let me put it on my books. It can be the name you're looking for, so that name will sit well on your books, will convince you that you're doing well. It can be that this client has a very high pay rate. It can be that this client has a lot of contacts. Maybe a big company like Dangote, who also has distributors. You may want to pull into that so they can also push you to the distributors and all that. So value chain marketing. If that's what you want to get, know that what the mission is. And do not force clients into one bucket. So you do a transaction for a first bank at 2 million naira. You do it for Raymond, it must be 2 million or nothing. I'm not sure that's a good way to do business of this kind of practice. Item 10 will be realizing that being a business, you have to create a culture of customer delight around your whole platforms. From your receptionist to your mail guy, to delivery guy, to your court clerk, to everybody that works in that firm. People have to know that they all form part of the entire vision. You must embed them in what you're trying to deliver. Failing that, you are going nowhere. There's not mention about pay, job enhancement, growth, and development of staff members. That's very key in practice. And these things resonate from the client's perspective. When things are not doing well in your firm, you find that it shows how your people carry themselves. And because the firm is represented by everybody, it's important that you also watch out for all your reps, how they look, how they present themselves, and how they carry themselves. The 11th point I'd like to mention is about defining your limits. Reginald also mentioned issues around the RPC. Yes, there's always the issue around customer is always right, so you want to push your client's interest. But at all times, do not forget the balancing act that our professional ethical duty calls. And you must realize where a client is asking you to do that, which may occasion the cancellation of your practice license. You don't want to earn a fee and lose your license, or put your name out there in a very terrible reputational manner. So it's important that as you get ingrained in this customer service orientation, you still remember that there are some borderlines that speak to the need for you to keep to the ethical standards. Item 12 is where you grow this service-oriented brand and become your client's trusted advisor. This is a height of the journey, in my view, in practice, where, like Reginald mentioned, you have foreign clients who are coming to the country. They are here for 2 nights. They want to spend 2 hours with you. They're here for 1 week. They like to see you two evenings. Wherever they are going, they want you around them, not because it's going to discuss law, but because they're very comfortable having you around. That is really where people should aspire to grow in their practices to. And I think it is service beyond competence and capacity that would move you fast to this side of the river. It takes time to build trust, but once built, it also takes a long time to break it. So I encourage practices to strive to use the service orientation that keeps the firms in business to drive an aspiration to get to the point where their clients see them as an integral part of their mission and their business cycle. Next slide, please. Okay, these are just a few other tips. I felt that like sub-items. Firms have to analyze, have the skills to analyze situations. Firms have to have the skills to negotiate. That's all we do as lawyers. We must have very smart ways of arriving at sound judgment. All the time, calls are made in our practice, in our profession, for us to take a view. We are put in a very hard situation. We are told, so what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do next? Next steps. In light of all you've said, how do you think I should go? That question drills down and puts you in a position where you have to speak with some conviction. And I think if you grow this capacity, like Reginald also mentioned, across the board in a firm, not that when it is Raymond handling the file, it's a good job. When Mr. Peter handles it, something is shaky. That standardization has to happen for the firm to speak with one voice or at the same level when called upon to do so. Attention to details is a very key point. You don't want to write letters or documents that are having typos. That's a big turnoff. You read some documents from law firms, 100, 200 pages, you won't find a singular error. We have read books in school, and today, massive books are edited. You don't see any errors in them. We should aspire to be our best, because whatever we write speaks to our quality. We buy shirts and trousers that we like, buy shoes that we think are done well. Our shoes and our shirts and trousers and our products are right. So pay attention. Have your dates right. The court is it's got adjourned till June 7th, 2022. So be it in your letter. It doesn't become July 2023. If the time for a meeting is 11 a.m., let it be 11 a.m. and not 11 p.m. As little as that, because it can really disrupt and embarrass. Big leaders of corporates are very busy people, and their scheduling can be tight. If they rely on information given to them or meetings called by a lawyer, for instance, time zone issues. You put up a time zone, not realizing that Ghana is 1 hour behind Lagos, and your boss is supposed to take a meeting before you jump into the plane, and it turns out that, oh, you got it wrong. That can really be very bad. So details, attention, that's the strength of lawyers. People come to us to review documents to help them pin out and point out things that they've missed. So we are supposed to be ego-eyed, same way, to keep data that people can rely upon when they are working. Writing skills. I can't overemphasize this. If you cannot write as a firm, then you are a non-starter. Communication conveys the state of the mind, and in writing stands the power and the conviction of lawyers. People receive tons and tons of documents every day, but there are documents you receive that you must read. They compel readership. That is the aspiration you have, that once your letter lands on the table, from the font size, from the toilet paper, the quality of the paper, the way it's presented, it will compel readership. If you don't have that, work on it, because people receive these papers in tons every day and they shred them. They pick up some and you just put them aside to read them. So can't overemphasize that. If you cannot write as a law firm, how do you put up your copy paper? How do you put up your addresses in court? So that's just a reminder. Then collaboration. When a client comes to you to assist it resolve a challenge, it's come to you for help and to collaborate. You may see an embarrassing situation that the clients bring to your attention, and you run into conclusions that the client is stupid. How could you have signed this kind of document? You don't forget that this client has been in business for maybe 100 years, 30 years, 20 years, and very successful, signing the same kind of documents he has signed. Just like this one went bad. And he only came to you because this one went bad. He doesn't come to you when things are going well. So don't assume he's stupid. He could have traded that document for some bigger reasons. When the thing comes to you, please collaborate, show empathy, do the work, and put the lessons to learn for him to use, and not sound like convicting him for a crime. There was an error in his letter, and agreement has some gaps and all that. That if that didn't happen, perhaps there would be need for you. But like I always tell firms, this customer or this bank or this company has been doing this severally, maybe hundreds of them. One or two go wrong. That company also will have had its own threshold for losses. And once that threshold is still under control, that business is still doing well. So don't push it too much. Just collaborate and get the job done. Be a team player. Finally, emotional intelligence. You can be a first class. You can have all your young lawyers coming out from Harvard, from Yale, Vassar College London, and maybe Cranfield and all that. But EI is key. People need you to see that you can relate to their situation. A singular introductory remark on a Microsoft Teams call or a Zoom call can set the tone for a good or bad outcome of a meeting. That is EI. So, as people grow in your firm, take them through courses, programs that emphasize and endorse the place of emotional intelligence. Without it, smartness, academic excellence, and competence may be thrown on the floor, especially in a market as Nigeria. You can say the same thing in 100 other ways, depending on who your audience is. So always be audience pragmatic. Know who you're speaking to and know how best to communicate the same message. Use less of absolute words, but let your words go across firm, but let them sound sweet. This slide just speaks to the cliche all of us know, tech innovation. It wasn't what it was last year, it wasn't what it was 10 years ago. And like Anita mentioned, it is time we get our RPC and other documents and other laws to be in tune with today's realities. We've since moved. If in the past, we were in one place doing this, and I'm not sure we can succeed in the kind of studies we are running now. But the reality is I'm sitting in my office or wherever I am now doing this, and then Ignadi is home from wherever he is. So this reality has come to be with us, and it's important that we embrace it. We have to put these platforms to work for us. They are tools. Without them, we cannot compete. And we don't just buy them because we can afford them. So you buy and keep. No, you buy them, you flog them, you sweat them. They make money for you because they don't last too long. The next one will come out again, you reinvest. If you don't sweat the one you got now and just pack it, you won't be able to make the one that will enable you invest in the next that's coming. Next slide. Yeah, so these are the schematics around the platforms. The website is there, online client consultation, emails, and functional platforms for communication. Task tools where you can set like Gantt charts, set up a process, monitor it, have your timelines with reminders and ticklers to help you ease your work. The law reports are online today, access to them, and all kinds of books and their subscriptions. The filing system, data is the biggest asset we are seeing in the market. It's growing. Storage is important. Just as retrieval is also important. You store, you have ease of retrieval, callback. It also enhances efficiency because you don't repeat the same work you already have done. You can always pull from what you have. We are lawyers and we know the place of precedence in our practice. Trainings, if you can't afford to put people on the plane, let them subscribe online. It's all over the place now. It's easier. Also mention AI. If you have a big practice where you are processing a lot of data, this can help you process and interpret trends and give you intelligent outcomes that can put to use where human capacity will have been stressed for years and weeks to do the same thing. Things that are essentially manual and perhaps routine. AI can help you put them in one place that they're easy for you to manage. Next slide. So by closing remark, say that this world, the world is changing and all aspects of our lives are affected in this regard. Every other profession is adapting. People are selling off the shelf solutions for hospitals, same thing for pharmacies, same thing for law firms. All they need to do is just adapt it a bit and make it a bit different to write programs based on our activities. And it's all over the place. It's available. Let's move with the time. We cannot stay and be dogmatic about our profession. It has to respond and react to reality. If you don't want to survive, you have to move and pay attention to keeping your clients happy and making more business from them. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So I'll just dive on straight to the question. The first one we have, please, anyone who has questions, please put it in the Q&A section of the webinar so I can just read them out when we get to that point. So the first question is, how do you draw a line between being pleasant and having boundaries? E.g., a client wants to be on the phone for 30 to 40 minutes after work or comes to the office and stays on endlessly repeating same thing.
Thank you very much for that question. Emotional intelligence comes in here. And I'm happy we mentioned the issue about knowing your clients. Know your clients. You cannot put all your clients in one bucket. Some don't want to read more than one line. Some want to chat. The time you save from the one who doesn't want more than one sentence, you spare for the man who wants to speak longer. Not that you give more your time, but do not put all your clients in one straitjacket. Try to create time for that client who wants you to hear him out. Now, if it becomes that it's such that it will interfere with other things, you can schedule the meetings when you can accommodate that client. Or politely tell the client when it's time to go that, sir or ma, may I ask that we end this call at this time? I'll call you back at so time. I have to catch up with ABC. If you say this and he or she obliges you, please do return that call as you promised. Not that you shove him off with that and he begins to have a trend that you close him out with that excuse and never come back to him. So there's no specific time I'll tell you, speak to a client for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If your client wants a whole Saturday evening, if you can afford it, give it to him and make the money from that client. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a question here, and it's actually very direct to you as in-house counsel. So it says, there's an issue that has been bothering for some time now. I discovered that some of the corporate institutions, particularly banks, are in the habit of foisting fees on lawyers and request that either they take or reject the brief. There are instances where bank brief external solicitors to defend 500 million claim and offer to pay them 500,000 as full and final without allowing the counsel negotiate or send his bill. What do you have to say about this?
Okay. Last year we had NBA, the law firm of SP Ajibade. They had a session on legal professionals' fees in Nigeria. And following that, I think the NBA set up a committee that's working on this subject. You mentioned like this is a direct question. I'm a lawyer. I also work in a bank. First, we all owe a duty to keep to the prescriptions of our statute, which is the Legal Professionals Act, the Legal Professionals Remuneration Act. But what we find in reality is that one, banks usually recoup cost from customers. When we do perfection of security, for example, customers' accounts are debited. They're supposed to be debited for that because it's customers that bear that cost under the agreement. Customers resist with everything they have these fees. And then the banks or companies that pay less than the statutory provisions should ordinarily have an agreement with the firms that work for them. If anybody forces or unilaterally imposes a fee on a firm, I think that's very, very wrong. That's unprofessional. But in terms of whether or not we are getting the due for our job as lawyers in the market, I'd rather have the MBA finish this project it's doing, and let's see whether there will be some kind of teeth added to the prescription in law that when it is breached, some penalty goes with it. Until that happens, people will always go for what is convenient for them in terms of pricing. The cheaper or the less expensive, the better. So, but MBA and the profession has to force the hands of the market. Accountants are having the same problem. Softwares are having the same problems. Every profession is having the same problem in this country. That's a reality. So it's a market issue, and you addressed at the market level. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess all the questions are also on fees. So I think that has answered all the questions on fees. So I'll just go to the next one, which is, please, where can we carry on? Please, where you carry on transactional practice that requires a draft of several contracts for clients within and outside Nigeria. Can you send? Oh, this doesn't have anything. It has to do with stamp and seal, so it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about today. I think my own personal question before I hand over to Tobena would be, so you are sitting as in-house counsel. It's possible that you've gone through it on during your slides. What practical things do you look out for when you are engaging? So take, for instance, you want to engage someone that you haven't actually, you don't have on your retainer list, because I'm sure you have loads of them, but what particular thing would you like to look out for? Especially a young lawyer who is just, not really young, but someone who is just starting out their practice. What soft skill would you like to see, in their presentation or whatever? Because it's sometimes it's difficult, leaving the people that but you have to, make this work go around to other people so that, the young ones can actually grow. So please, can you just tell us what you'd actually be looking for to help young lawyers or, mid-level who are looking to aspire to do work for big banks like yours and the likes?
Okay, Nita, thank you very much. let me start by saying that as a lawyer in Nigeria, if you read law in Nigeria for 4 years, maybe your faculty, you're set about 70, 80, or 100 may graduate. So you have 99. If you're 100, then you have 99 classmates. Go to law school and meet the whole market in law school and make new friends. Maybe make another 200 friends. You leave and start work. You have your colleagues who have their relations, who have their neighbors, who have their landlords, who have their tenants, who are lawyers. Your church members, your mosque members. I mean, where the list can come from is endless. So nobody, no in-house law firm, no in-house counsel gives jobs to only people that he knows. Let's come out from that impression. Indeed, lawyers that work for First Bank I don't know in person are more than those I know in person. So it doesn't work that way. It is your work that speaks for you. And how do you get started? Big companies, maybe the international companies, may limit all their work to select big law firms. But most Nigerian banks, no matter how big they are, also use young one-man lawyers to support their businesses. How do I mean? Just last night, an incident happened. An Uber that was taking some of my colleagues to a client meeting yesterday, the Uber driver collapsed on the steering and died. And the vehicle ran into some place. And they went to report to the police. They were kept at custody till about 9:30, 10 o'clock yesterday night. I was looking for any lawyer that lives around Sakai Town. Yesterday evening, I was looking for any lawyer. And we had a young lawyer who lived there. And he rose up that night and went to deal with it. This is what the young lawyers can do. I sit in my office and watch some of our lawyers jump down from the bus with their documents from Alausa, sweat to come and deliver to us. They walk the tables one by one. That's what they can do. I get hearing notices this evening to be in court tomorrow morning. Young lawyers who are not as busy just walk into that court to go and show presence and announce appearance. We use them. We do. And what do we look in there? We look for speed, zest, interest, passion. We look for knowledge also. So if we can use them to match the large cases, the other counterparts in large cases, we use them for our everyday routines. They come very handy. If EFCC calls anybody from my branch in maybe some remote place in Northern Cross River, my choice would be to call somebody, a young lawyer from that side, accompany him to EFCC. So it doesn't work that way. It's just that, and that's why what Reginald said comes very handy. The young lawyers would only meet some of the in-house counsel at conferences and at events. They have to deliberate in where they go and who they sit with and who they reach out to at those events. You have to be very strategic, not just going around the whole place where there are events. Calculate who you imagine may be at an event, find ways to warm yourself to those people you're looking for, and make an impression. It can be by what you write. You can write and send free to in-house counsel, write articles, send CVs. Some lawyers have pounded me with CVs that I was compelled to invite them for interviews. Yes. So if you're committed, you can move. But if you're scared, like Reginald said, when they started, some big firms own the whole market. But every day things change. There's something that stays forever. The young one will still grow. But for starters, show a sign that you're interested and show a sign of energy and capacity. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that's the only question from me on this side. Tobena, are you there?
Yes, I am. Unfortunately, I'm struggling with my camera, so my apologies to everybody. But I've listened to the entire presentation. Very exciting to listen to you, Ray. Thank you very much. I just picked a comment from somebody on the comment box, and it says area of light on issues discussed. I think it was captured quite aptly. So, and you know, when you hear a veteran speak on an issue or train on an issue, you know clearly that the person has been doing it for a long time and understands what the market needs to know about that particular issue. Ray, I couldn't have thought of a better person to present on this topic. And I think you delivered it in a very simple, direct, and interactive manner. Thank you very much for accepting to speak. And I know how busy you are, and I know what it took for you to be here, but thank you. We're very, very grateful. To the audience, I'll just say that I hope you all took the benefit of the resources that we've got here today. Reginald was very good, and of course, you know what Reginald does. Ray, exceptional. I mean, in the corporate world, there are very few people with his pedigree and with his experience. And, you know, when we talk about continuing professional development and continuing legal education, we're actually looking at practical aspects of practice of law, the things that help us develop and enhance our practices, whether the topics are technical or whether they are soft. So in the coming days, there's going to be a lot of these trainings, and we hope that you all log in. On the 7th, Chico Biang of Templas is Chief Operating Officer of Templas. They'll be talking on financial issues in the management of law practices. And then Tomini Owolabi is a managing partner at Olaniwa Ajayi. Will be speaking on building a law firm brand. And I'm sure they will, some of them have participated in today's sessions, and we expect to have the same standard going forward. So thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much, Ray, and I can see you also sat through Reginald's session. So thank you very much. I think there's a lot of social capital on that word for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and best of luck.
Okay, bro. And I hope when we call you next, you will oblige us as always. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much to the team. Dr. Adio Adefolu, thank you very much. Sarah Omega, Kunla Jabwe, Ntai Biken, thank you very much, everybody, and God bless you. See you on the 7th. And then for those who are interested in employment law, of course, there's a session that's going to start tomorrow. So I wish you all the best. God bless.